Right, let's make a start. My name is John McDonnell. I'm a Labour MP for Hayes and Harlington, and I'm in the car at the moment chairing this meeting. This is what life has become under COVID, and also in terms of the actions, the campaign we've got at the moment. But don't worry, I'm not driving, and it's not hands-free. I've got someone driving me. So this is going to be, as my wife just said, someone. It's my wife who's driving me at the moment. So what I'll be doing is chairing it from the car until we get to our destination. Okay. Just to say thanks for everyone joining this. This is a public meeting. It's one of the many public meetings that Paul has been doing. Basically, we're trying to bring together UNISON members to talk about the future of the union. And what we've been doing is meeting on Zoom, basically different groups and regions. And at the same time, we've been looking at the different sections of the union as well. And every one of our meetings has been incredibly well attended. I've been absolutely staggered the numbers that have been turning out to these meetings. So I'm really pleased. I think people realise, like me, just so you know my background, I'm a UNISON member. I was a member of NUPE. I was a NUPE shop steward, and then when we merged and joined with COSI and NALGO to set up UNISON, I naturally became a UNISON member. And I can't remember how long now. I think it's about 40 years, 45 years, something like that. I've been a member of the union itself. So I have an interest, like you have, about the future of our union. And I think, I'll be straight with you, I think this election is most probably the most important that we've had in this union for a very long time, because in electing the General Secretary of UNISON, we will be determining the way the union operates in future, the way we as members will have a say in the union, and the way in which, well, I suppose the way in which UNISON as a union properly represents its members. And the reason I'm so strongly backing Paul is because if you look at what he's saying in terms of his overall programme, this is about restoring power to the members of our union. Paul is the members' candidate, and the whole point of his standing now is to make sure that we have a union that is controlled by our members, where power is with the members themselves in the branches, and a union that reflects the members' views. And I just think that's critically important if we're going to have a strong and viable union for the future. And the other reason I'm supporting Paul, because I've known him over the years. Most of you have met him and had any experience of Paul. Is what you see is what you get. And I just think he's the sort of General Secretary we want. We need someone who's a rank and file member of our union with years of experience on the front line representing our members, never afraid to stand up for what he believes in, never afraid to stand up for our members, but also articulate and able to negotiate effectively and represent the views of our members. And that, I think, is the ideal candidate for us, and that's why I'm backing him. And I'm hoping that for the first time in our union for a long while, we can have a huge breakthrough so that we have a member, a rank and file member elected to General Secretary, and I don't want to be disparaging of others, but not the traditional bureaucrat, the HQ bureaucrat, that sort of thing. We need someone who's really on the front line and has that experience, and the ability. That's why I'm backing Paul. One, because this is important for the union that we restore power back to the members, and secondly, that we have someone, well, of the integrity and commitment and quality that Paul has demonstrated in all of his role and basically all of his activities in our union. I just want someone, that when you're in a campaign, they're there. You don't have to appeal to them. They're automatically there in solidarity. And that's what Paul has shown to all of us, really, when in the campaigns over the years. And to his cost sometimes, let's be honest about it, he's at times, sometimes in our union, when you stand up to be counted, well, well, there's a bit of reaction against you, but from some quarters. But I don't think that I honestly don't think our members want someone who'll ever back down. They want someone who'll stand up and have the courage to do that. And the thing with Paul is, he gets knocked down, he gets back up again, because he believes our union is all about making sure our members are properly represented. And that's what we want. And we've had a rough time over this last 10 years in particular, in the cutbacks in the jobs, in all the public services where we've got members. Effectively, the freezing of wages, wages are still below the level they were before the banking crash. And also the undermining of terms and conditions, the threats and attacks on terms and conditions, including our pensions. So I think, we need someone who's pretty strong, and really we need someone who members can say, this is what we want, we take democratic decisions, and a general secretary that will carry those decisions out. So that's why I'm backing Paul. But the purpose of these meetings is so that Paul can explain what he stands for, his program for the union, and then people can then discuss and see where we go from here. What's been fantastic is this is democracy at work. It's coming together, proper presentation. I've been overwhelmed at the scale of support that Paul's received, the nominations that have been flooding in, and I think that's a reflection of people's judgment about the nature of the General Secretary that we want for the future. So I'm glad you've come tonight, and I'm grateful for you attending this public meeting. It's really good of you to come along. What we'll do now is Paul will say a few words, just setting out his program and the discussions that he's been having about the future of our union. And you'll be able to see from that the sort of person he is, but also you'll be able to judge the policies that he's advocating and the way that he'll play the role as General Secretary. Then there'll be a number of other speakers as well. I'll be chairing the meeting as best I can. If I lose signal as we go in the car or whatever, Dan will take over, but I'm hoping I don't. But I'm doing it from my phone at the moment. I'm hoping I can get home and latch onto the broadband again fairly quickly. Okay. Anyway, Paul, over to you, mate.
Thank you, Chair. I think John McDonnell, I'd like to thank John for all he's done in this campaign. My name's Paul Holmes. But this is when we had the meeting the other night, John was walking through the streets of Hayes to his birthday dinner. Tonight he's in a car. I think he's become the evil Knievel of chairing. He's thinking of different dangerous ways that he can chair meetings, and it's rocked us all out of us sort of like comfort zone, really. God knows what he's going to be doing to chair the other meetings, whether he's going to be coming down in a parachute, I'm not sure. But anyway, my name's Paul Holmes. I'm standing to be the General Secretary of UNISON. I've got 40 years experience in the union as a steward and a member, 31 years as a branch secretary of one of the 10 biggest branches out of the 830, which is Kirklees UNISON. We've got just about 10,000 members. And I was also an NEC member on NALGO in the 1980s. I've been on the National Pay Negotiation. It's got a wide variety of experience in the union and across the union, not just in local government, but I've been branch secretary of members who were in the poultry sector, the university sector, the water sector, the transport sector, the police sector, the probation sector. A wide experience of the union. And I'm standing to be General Secretary because I think it's time for a lay member General Secretary. And one of the things that's disappointed me, very much disappointed me, is some people saying, it needs to be somebody, the General Secretary needs to be somebody who's got wide experiences of managing £1 million funds or wide experiences of managing 1,000 staff. Why does the rule book say we're a lay member-led union? Why is the union's policies implemented in between conference by an elected lay body, the NEC? I'm a socialist, and I firmly believe that given the right opportunities, most people can do most jobs to different levels and different abilities. But to say that a lay member can't do the job because he hasn't got that experience of doing that, A, is an insult to all our members, but B, is an insult to those people who have come from being lay members to being General Secretaries of the union. I've never heard anybody say about Mark Sawatka, how did he go from a civil service office? How did he manage all them people in that budget? Similarly, Joe Grady's just been elected in the last 12 months, who's like me, he's from Wakefield, as General Secretary of the UCU. who also was a lay member. I think she only became a steward in 2015, 2016 in the UCU. So for me, the rule book means something, always has meant something. And the fact that we're a lay member led means that anybody can stand to be the General Secretary that meets the criteria. And the criteria is clear. You've got to be an employee of the union for more than 5 years, or a lay member of the union for 5 years. And in the 5 elections we've had so far as the General Secretary, always has been elected one of the full-time officers, somebody who was employed by the union. So that means that 0.0001% of those eligible to stand have provided the General Secretary, and 99.99% have not provided the General Secretary either lay membership. And that has led us to the problem we've got at the moment. One of the main problems we've got at the moment is this huge gulf between the branches and the National Union. Now, that I think all the candidates, I don't like commenting with the candidates because they say what they want, and I don't criticise the other candidates, but I think virtually all the candidates in this election have said we need to redress that balance. And for me, and I've said it every meeting I've been to, hosting meeting, all these public meetings, I've said, look, the branch only consists of 2 things. The union only consists of 2 things. The branch and the members. There is nothing else. It's a card trick to say there's anything else. The National Union, the Regional Union, the welfare, the legal, Croyd Bay, is all support for the members. 90% of the work representing our members is done by the branches, but only 25% of the money goes there. So I'm advocating very clearly that is increased to 50%. Not just money, some branches have got reserves, but you know, if you say to a branch secretary, you've got loads of reserves, but like in Kirklees, we haven't got loads of reserves, by the way, you've got 208 employers, and some branches have got 300 and 400 employers. It is of no concern to them that when they're getting all the phone calls from the private care homes, the private sector, all the places without stewards, without time off, without facilities, without disciplinary and grievance procedures, they're going under, and they're risking being disciplined for representing people outside the core employer. And so one of the things I'm bringing to this union is that one of the first things we need to do is get out there and start doing collective bargaining agreements in large private employers. We've got to pick 3 in every branch and say, we're going to get a collective bargaining agreement there with a disciplinary procedure and a grievance procedure. We're going to put the resources into it. We're not going to float about in cars and sitting in meetings. We're going to put resources into that. And then when we get collective bargaining agreements and disciplinary procedures and grievance procedures, when that happens, we'll start getting proper negotiations in them employers. Instead of being given no hold cases where you can't represent the member because the employer goes ahead with the disciplinary, whether you're there or you're not there. And I've just got to say, what the union has become, and it's becoming rapidly, is what, if you study American trade unions, and I have studied American trade unions, we're practicing company unionism, which is actually the main priority of the union is what subscriptions do we collect? How much money is coming in? And if you study the funding of the union, the actual surplus the union makes every year is plus every year. I think it's for the previous 5 years to this year, was £20 million was put by the National Union and the branches into the reserves as a surplus. It looks like it's going to be 3 or 4 million this year, 7/12 of the way through the year. Now, that is wasted money. We are not here to become a bank or a building society. The assets of this union are the members' pay, the members' terms and conditions, and the members' pensions. That is the only asset that you can measure it by. Everything else should be thrown at that to protect and improve that situation. So I've got a commitment to 50% of the resources, not the money, the resources going to the branch, but also, because anybody can say how much money is being spent to the branches, it's under the control of the branches. We're saying to the branches, what do you want? What's your plan? What do you want to do? Because this resource and this money is coming to you. And we're going to change this union so that full-time officers aren't saying to branches all the time, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, I went to an NHS demonstration in Leeds on the 8th of August, and we're surrounded by our members, not activists, ordinary members, who were there on the demonstration about pay. where their branches had received correspondence saying they shouldn't be attending these demonstrations. We're too conservative. We shouldn't. Oh, I'm not really sure we should be attending Black Lives Matters. We've got to expand the union. One of the problems with the conference is that all the stuff that everybody wants to discuss at the conference is ruled out of order. There'd be more interesting conference if we had another conference that discussed those motions that were ruled out of order. You get a bigger attendance because it's got to be relevant and it's got to mean something to people. And I have always believed that when you see somebody who looks like they're enthusiastic or committed or has got some feeling for the union, you can see it in any meeting you go to, even if it's somebody being critical of the union. Some of the best stewards I've ever met have criticised the union at meetings I've been to. And either A, they've been wrong, and we said they're wrong, or B, they've been right. And we've altered what we're doing. That is the nature of democracy. So I want to set up a leadership school in the union where we don't look at people and think, is that person going to stand against me? Is that a future competitor? That's not what it's about. It's about not just increasing how good the team is, but increasing the size of the team. And we've got to, increasingly now, for our stewards, both in the public and the private and the voluntary sectors, they're getting picked on by employers. They're getting scared of saying things. They're getting pressurised if they put their head above the parapet. And I'm going to give a clear message if I'm elected General Secretary. Every single steward and health and safety rep in this union is protected from the top to the bottom of this union. There'll be no more, oh, we don't like so-and-so, and we don't like so-and-so. Total protection to the stewards. I always say to our stewards, don't do anything stupid, but if you see a situation that you have to deal with, I will back you 100%. And it don't really matter if you're right or you're wrong. We will back you. And I might say to you, you were wrong there, but we're backing you. And that situation occurs on a daily basis for our members. In health and safety situations, oh, we can't do that because, we can't stop doing that because you're breaking the law. You've got to follow that instruction. If a member rings me up and says they're faced with a dangerous situation, say don't do it. I don't want a crap management decision to be followed by our members and then we're sorting out how we'll prove right over a dead body. Don't want to do that. Always back the members, always back the stewards, and always involve the people in it. And this union's got to change. We're told that it's the biggest union in Britain. I think it is the biggest union in Britain, but our members don't think it is. And it doesn't act and fight like it's the biggest union in Britain. It acts as though it's timid, that it's scared of saying things. We're not a massive public profile union, and we should have become one. We should have become one. Oh, there's a dozen instances you can pick over the last 10 years, following austerity, following COVID, following cuts in local government, following pensions, where we should have been high profile. People who were ex-members in UPI during the ambulance strike in the early 90s, every member in UPI knew that there were a full-time officer called Roger Poole who were on the television every night, backing the ambulance workers, pursuing their claim, giving them it. That's what people want to see. They want to see people giving them it. And that's not that we've got some hero as the General Secretary or some macho person. It's not just the General Secretary. Every single regional secretary should be on local television saying, we're not standing for this, we're not standing for that. Instead, we've got a situation where some people like to keep out of the limelight. Well, if you want to be the General Secretary, you've got to be in the limelight. You're representing the hopes and aspirations of 1.3 million members. And we haven't been on Question Time for 20 years. I use that as an example of a high-profile programme that would have trade union leaders on. It's hard for trade union leaders to get on sometimes, unless there's a strike or an incident. But we've been invited loads of times to go on Question Time. We've turned it down. We can't do that. We've got to put our issues in front of the members. And another thing I firmly believe is in democracy. Not only do I believe that I should earn £32,000 a year as a General Secretary, not because I'm a saint, not because I'm willing to make sacrifices, but that's what I earn as a legal officer in Kirklees Council. That's what I earn as the branch secretary. And that's what hundreds of branch secretaries do across Britain. They do the role as on the terms and conditions and pay the people that they work with. And that's what I think about this job. It's a role where you're leading with honour and passion and privilege 1.3 million people. The £32,000 is what I get paid, because that is the salary that I'm on from work. And I think there's got to be a separation now between the employed staff who are entitled to negotiated terms and conditions and pay and in from their recognised union, and the elected staff, the General Secretary who is elected, and the Assistant General Secretaries and Regional Secretaries who should be elected, who are elected officials who do 5-year periods and they're accountable and report back to the members. And last, I think it was 2018, was the first year since the Second World War where more than 50% of local government expenditure went to private and companies in the voluntary sector. So that the democratically elected councils only controlled 49% of the budget. And that's complete out of order. In the Kirklees Unison office, there's a yearbook, the 1954 yearbook for Huddersfield Council. And Huddersfield Council, the largest council in Yorkshire that was never Labour until it was abolished in 1974, was a fire authority, a police authority, a hospital authority, a water authority, probation authority. Dewsbury Council, which is also part of Kirklees, Dewsbury Council used to have a power station. They used to burn their own coal and provide all the old people's homes and children's homes with electricity and sell it to 7 other local authorities. We've got to think bigger than we are. We've got to realise that what should be under democratic control is not the minuscule amount of things that's under democratic control now, but the whole things that we think should be in the public sector. That should be our attitude to private care homes. That should be our attitude to private children's homes. We will never control what we don't own. And I want to pay a £15 a week minimum salary for people in care homes, because that's what they're worth. This COVID crisis has showed that Oscar Wilde were right when he first came to England from Ireland, when he said, the first thing I found out in England was everybody's paid in inverse proportion to the usefulness. And everybody's seeing now that just because a job's low pay, it hasn't got low worth. Road sweepers, people who stack shelves in the supermarkets, people who clean the hospitals, cleaners in schools, are vital jobs that are worth a rate of pay way in front of a hedge fund manager. People aren't thinking, oh, these are low paid jobs, we don't really need them. People are thinking, do we need hedge fund managers? Do we need investment brokers? Do we need billions of pounds put into the Cayman Islands and into the Virgin Islands? And I read in the Financial Times last week, I'm drawing an extra close now. I read in the Financial Times last week that last year, the bankers for the previous 12 months were given, and I say given, £40 billion in bonuses. That's money that's come out of your savings and my savings. £40 billion in bonuses, which is bigger than the budget of Scotland, went in bankers' bonuses. So you tell me what we can and what we can't afford. So I'm standing to be General Secretary to increase the team, to increase the leadership, to put this union on the front foot, so that our members can walk round like NUM members used to, like RMT members do, with a union badge on or telling people what union they're in, and they're proud of it. Not a situation where the majority of our members probably don't even know who the General Secretary or the Regional Secretaries are. We should know in this time who everybody is who's elected, because they should be in the front of this battle representing our members. Our members are a vital part of this community. They're not a minority. There won't be an ordinary street in Britain without a UNISON member on it. There's 7 UNISON members live on our street. I live on an ordinary terrace street. The 7 UNISON members live on it. And I talk to them all the time. Talk to 2 of them because I live with them. But the situation is that ordinary people are in unison doing jobs that people value. It's the value of what people do. And if you're going to value a job, you've got to pay the job. So I'm standing to be a General Secretary. If you want to carry on like it is now, then you shouldn't vote for me. But if you want esteem, if you want paid for your worth, if you want the sort of aspirations that people had in the 1970s when they retired on good pensions and looking forward to early retirement, then I say vote for me, for a vote to change this union so they can build a union that's worthy of the members. The union is not worthy of the members at this moment in time. Thank you very much.
For that, terrific. Thank you very much. It sets out your program and your ambitions for this union. I hope really that in this coming weeks now that people realise and get the message about what potential you're capable of giving this union. Thanks very much, Paul. Our next speaker is Claire Wormald, is the branch secretary at Southend-on-Sea. Claire.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I just want to say I'm really proud to say that our branch today has voted or nominated Paul Holmes to stand as a candidate for the General Secretary election. And I think that is a great sort of day for our branch, and I think going forward it's going to be a good day for this campaign. I think as a branch secretary, I just want to talk about as a branch secretary for over sort of around 14 years in a medium-sized branch with a cross-section of schools, local government services, private care homes. I experienced the level of work that ordinary branch members have to deal with across the whole branch, and we know that is a heavy load for all. And I think that's why the proportion of the branch funding or branch resources that branches receive is so seriously unbalanced. And as you've already heard from Paul, you know, that balance of 90% of the work to 25% of the resources is an utter disgrace. And I think the pledge that Paul is making of giving us 50% of those resources is going to make a massive difference to our branch. It will stop us firefighting and gasping for air and make us and allow us to start organising across all our branches. And it will help us improve our democracy as well. And I think that's really important with being able to support all our members within our branches. And I think it connects so much with the bargaining rights. And I think that's so important in a branch. It's got a cross section of workers. That it's something that we've argued for the private sector for a long time, to have a planned approach to dealing with our private sector workers. I think that have been so sorely let down in the past by this union. It's vital for organisers in branch like mine, something like this, and it's something that we've been raising for years. So fully support, you know, that is a pledge that obviously is why we are supporting Paul. I think it's going to make the union as a whole more representative of its communities, will mean, you know, it will stop this end of continual caseworkers supporting, discrimination cases. Absolutely vital for our members, but will create an absolutely more confident workforce that is organised to fight discrimination in its own workplace. It will make demands for better pay and push back against the crap conditions and equality. And that is vital for building a branch, a strong and vital union, and a branch as well. And I think that's also part of, I'm also a Regional Education Training Committee chair at the Eastern region. And over the years, I've just been watching the deterioration of the training agenda within the union. I think that's an absolute disgrace, and it's just undermining our activists, our potential activists, and our fighting power. And I think that, you know, the incumbents, have reduced regional workers organised around this and increased the cost of training for branches, and that might vary in different regions, but it's definitely being underfunded. So that pledge that Paul has made, I think, to support a leadership centre is something, again, that makes me want to stand with Paul in this election. And I think it makes all our lay members more confidence, and it's vital for our membership to grow and get tooled up for the fight ahead. We know that fight's going to be hard, and training, and not just in classrooms or whatever, but training on picket lines and training on campaigns is an absolute vital thing for us, this branch, to grow. And I think the history of Paul is something else that makes myself want to pledge my support. He's been there organising as a lay member for over 30 years, as we've heard. He's done strikes against racism, for social workers, to defend social workers, to name just a few. And I trust him. I trust that he knows what ordinary branches need. He's lived and breathed the life of an ordinary branch for over 30 years, and it's a very large local government branch as well. Hence the radical programme, I think, because it's born out of experience, it's born out of knowledge what lay members need, what a fighting union needs. And I think, you know, it screams real change, doesn't it? And I think that's really brilliant to say something. It gives you a sense of vitality, that you can see the potential of change coming forward as organising within a branch, you know. And this sets him really well apart from the other candidates that I believe have failed us seriously failed us over pay and pensions over the years, has seriously failed us to support branches and lay members within the union. And that's had a massive impact on the confidence of our members. And I think, you know, this is why this plan of action is going to give and recreate that confidence and recreate a strong union. And this is all why I want Paul as our next Generous Secretary. He has that proven history of fighting for lay members across the union. He speaks with fire in his belly as well. He raises the union profile. You know, he's setting a plan of radical change that will make a strong, organised union, ready for this government when it comes up to making us pay for COVID and ready to fight back for what we've lost. I think he's going to make this union a great union, and I'll stand with Paul. Thank you.
Claire, thanks very much for that. To be honest, you've echoed what we've heard at virtually every meeting about what we need in this union. And it is just interesting at every meeting. The sort of agenda you've set comes up each time, and the need for change now. Our next speaker is Rose Brown. She's a member of the West Midlands Black Members Committee. Rose.
Hi. I'm supporting Paul Holmes' General Secretary election campaign because I believe that Paul wants to put the power back into the hands of the grassroots members. If coronavirus has taught us anything, it's that the real heroes are not the politicians, not the bankers, not the hedge fund bosses. It's the care workers, the refuse workers, hospital porters, cleaners, doctors and nurses, shop workers and delivery drivers. These are the people that have kept the country running. Frontline workers outsourced to pay for austerity, many from some of the most at-risk communities disproportionately affected by the virus and left fighting this pandemic without effective PPE. Fighting managers, forcing often low-paid workers into dangerous and unsafe work practices. While we clap for our frontline workers, our gratitude turned to frustration, and our frustration turned to anger. Don't clap for them, pay them. And what was our union's response? After so much BS and bluster about smashing the pay cap, what does our union do for our newly defined heroes? Our union accepts a 2.75% pay insult and for local government, and equally dismissive offer for NHS workers. When our own national members SOG notes that Black workers make up 1/3 of COVID-19 patients admitted to intensive care, and 2/3 of NH staff who have died, and double the average of households who have lost jobs or an income. When in the middle of the global pandemic, our union finds school uniform grants understandably oversubscribed, closes the grant at a time when members need it most. This just underlines how devoid the union has become from the members, and it places values on the General Secretary's salary in excess of 100,000, yet reduces the access to low-paid workers to very much needed financial help. Paul has pledged to hand back more than that to the Welfare Committee and to strike funds, which is arguably where it should go. The time for change is now. This union is so far removed from its membership at a time when the union and the country are crying out for change, a time when many struggles have so much in common, but the underlying issues are the same: inequality and injustice. Why does our union not seem to see this? Is it because it is about the status quo? The status quo has become more important. Are salaries and subsidies more important than justice and equality? Paul has Paul is a candidate to redress the balance with pledges to develop a leadership school, encouraging young members and SOG members to build diversity, address the race pay gap, carry out a racism audit that takes inspiration from the Black Lives Matter movement, and address the issue address the Labour League scandal. to fight for a minimum wage of £15 and redirecting funding to branches. Personally, I don't understand why the largest union, we don't have more black and females in leadership roles. But for me, Paul is a candidate who will empower and deliver for black, female and all UNISON members. Paul Holmes pledges to develop a leadership school, which will make this happen and make our union visibly representative of the membership at all levels. We need a union that is a visible representation of its membership. I'm under no illusion that the post-pandemic attacks on jobs and terms and conditions are going to be huge. And I believe that Paul is the person to lead the fight back. Thank you.
Rose, thanks for that. Thanks very much for that. That was superb. And again, equality and the importance of Paul tackling inequality at the heart of his plan, his programme, has been so well received by our members. And I agree that the bringing on of the next generation of our representatives has got to be on the basis that it reflects our membership in every form, and particularly with regard to ethnicity. And again, we could really have a breakthrough now and making sure our union fully represents our membership. Our next speaker is Helen Astley. Helen's library assistant, and she's at Herefordshire County Council branch. Helen.
Thanks, John. Hi everyone. As John just said, I'm Helen Astley. I'm a library assistant. I'm also the chair of my branch as well, obviously speaking in a personal capacity. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience of Paul personally. I was elected to the SGE about 3.5 years ago, and I arrived at a seminar that they were hosting and feeling pretty nervous, and I sat by myself and wasn't really sure what to sit or who to talk to, and immediately Paul came and sat next to me and started chatting to me, and immediately I felt at home and welcome and like I belonged there. And I think that's Paul's gift, is that he inspires that confidence in people. You know, you feel welcome, you feel included. We must have swapped numbers, because another thing that impressed me and inspired me about him is that he will just pick up the phone. You'll just be at work one day and the phone will go and it will be Paul, and he's just ringing to see how you are, what's going on in your branch. And I think that's really important. He's not just going to turn up, you know, because there's an election or because he's thinking, oh, there's a strike on, so I better turn up, which I think might be something that some of the other candidates do, is, you know, they're just looking for a photo opportunity, possibly. I don't think Paul's like that. I think he's visible to branches. I think they know him. I think he knows everyone. Like he knows people's names. Once he's met them, he'll remember them. You know, I know some of the other candidates, but I'm not sure if they quite aspire to that level of involvement. And I really think that visibility is going to be so important to the union and to the members. I think he's going to be really recognisable. Whereas I think someone alluded earlier on to the fact that, you know, you could ask the membership of our branch or our regional members, you know, who's the branch secretary, who's the regional secretary, who's the general secretary, and a lot of them will not know. And I think Paul will change that. I really do believe that. I think he also alluded earlier on to the question time thing, where, you know, we are the biggest union, but people don't know, you know, where are we? Why aren't we in the news? Why aren't we in the press? And so I really think that he's going to change that as well. And that's a huge change to the better. We need to be a fighting union, and Paul is that fighter. Just talking about resources, my branch personally, once we've paid our admin assistant a caseworker for 12 hours a week, and our branch office, we've got about £5,000 a year. So you hear a lot talked about, oh, you talk to branches and they you know, they don't want the money. Well, actually, that's not true across the board. Some of the bigger branches might be in that position, but a lot of us aren't. And so when we're constantly asked to take part in things like Stars in Our Schools and all the things that we would love to, oh God, I would dearly love to have all these huge campaigns, and we just don't have the resources, the money. I can't get out there to promote and recruit more stewards. That's something that I've sort of I've really taken to is going out to workplaces and sort of talking to other potential activists, and we just don't have that resource. And I really firmly believe that Paul will redirect that money, and that he genuinely means that he will do that. And quite early on as well. So I don't think it's true to say that branches aren't, don't need that kind of money. I'm also impressed with his pledge that he would hope to move, well, whether he can move the HQ to the Midlands, but certainly an aspiration to have more of a presence in the Midlands, I think will be very helpful. Personally, it takes me about 4 hours to get to London, much as HQ is lovely. I just couldn't justify. On the SGE, they have several subcommittees. I quite fancied putting myself forward for one or two of them, but I just couldn't afford the amount of travelling time to get down to London. And I think a lot of activists who are living, perhaps in the north or in the far reaches of the country would probably also experience that. It takes, much as you think London's, the hub of the country, it isn't always that easy to get to. And I think the Midlands does provide that for a lot of activists. So that would be really good. I absolutely agree about the collective bargaining. That is a real struggle. We have over 100 employers in our branch. We're a sort of medium branch with just over 1,500 members, but it is difficult to get out and reach those members in the private care homes and other workplaces like that. And so I think that pledge to help us with the collective bargaining and to really go ahead, that would, if we could get an extra caseworker to be able to go out to those workplaces, that would be excellent. And I know a lot of branches must feel like that as well. I also resonate with the constantly being told you can't do things as well, which is a real shame. I often, I feel like a lot of campaigns and things that we would initiate, not necessarily at my branch level or anything, but get shut down. I mean, our regional secretary in the West Midlands is very good about that sort of thing. He is quite campaign driven, but I do feel that a lot of things that we would like to talk about at conferences, which are supposedly member led, there's always they always seem to find a way to time out getting as far as that rule change or something like that. And I just think that Paul will inspire that change. Well, thank you for listening to me waffle on. But yeah, I really, I urge people to vote for Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. You've given us some absolutely brilliant practical examples of what a difference Paul could make as General Secretary practically at the local level. And what resonates with me is that issue about where we've wanted to undertake campaigns, but there's been almost resistance to backing up the members in those campaigns. And I think it's really helpful to have your insight on this. We've got 10 or 15 minutes left of the meeting that we timed, and we've got a few questions that are coming in on the chat. If I can put one of them to you, Paul, let me see if I can get this up. Stacey Davis from Cambridge City and South Cambridgeshire branch.
I can step in there possibly. It looks like we might have lost John. Let me start my video. Hello everyone. I'm going to be super sub for John by the looks of it. It looks like the West London traffic is absolutely done for him. But all I've got to do is carry on reading that question out, so it shouldn't be too difficult. The question was from Stacey Davies from Cambridge City and South Cambridgeshire branch. What will you pledge for disabled workers, Paul? We're constantly being sidelined and access needs are sometimes not met.
Thank you, Chair. I am a disabled worker. I've got a disability, and for anybody who's on the NEC or the SGE will know that for 10 years now, I haven't been able to be in the room at the SGE or the NEC meeting because it's held in a room that's inaccessible to me. And some people on the SGE and some people on the NEC, purely by choice, sit with me in another room 8 or 9 floors away from the meeting, so I don't have to sit in a room on my own. I had the embarrassing, I think worse than embarrassing, insulting experience 9 years ago of being put in a cupboard on the 3rd floor of the unit building with no windows, a cupboard with no windows, no desk, and a screen to take part in a service group executive. So I know, as I'm one of the 200,000 people in this union who are disabled. And I think one of the issues about disability is it's a moving feast. You know, it's linked to illness, it's linked to age, it's linked to work. You know, a lot of work. I go to meetings sometimes with mechanics in Kirklees Council, and you won't find one. Everybody's got a plastic knee or a plastic elbow because they've been working on heavy machinery for 30 years. So for me, with 200,000 disabled members in this union out of 1 million, and that's the largest grouping of disabled members in Britain, we need to address that. We need to make it a priority at work. Accessibility should have been achieved 30 years ago. I've done grievance hearings for admin workers in Kirklees. That one worker in a big open plan office who had hearing difficulties got put in a phone box. They built a phone box in the room to deal with her hearing difficulties rather than making it accessible, the job accessible to her. So absolutely understand that issue. Absolutely top of the agenda. But it's got to be not policies. You know, every council's got enough policies to keep them going for another 10 years. Have they got the management that want to implement them policies? And that's what the union's got to be about. Not, you know, if you talk about any SOGS group in the union, it's got to discuss its own issues, but it's got to be able to implement them across the union so real members in real work situations can feel confident that the union will address them. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Paul. I should explain who I am as well, since I've just popped up and people will wonder. I'm Dan Sartin. I'm branch secretary of UNISON West Sussex down in the south of England, big branch for 6,500 members. I'm also on the NEC representing the South East, but obviously I'm here tonight speaking in a personal capacity. But I can vouch for what Paul has just said, because I've been on the NEC for years and I've spent my time in the NEC downstairs in that room with Paul, showing solidarity with Paul because of the failure to relocate those meetings. And I know Rose has as well when she was on the NEC, and thanks to go to Rose. Right, I'm going to go straight into the next question. Martin Sleeth from Notts Unison. Paul, could you please elaborate on your proposals regarding branch funding and ensuring that the members' money goes to where it's most needed, i.e. advancing the struggle and members' interests? So is there any more you want to tell us about that?
Yes, Chair. A couple of short things. I saw John Burgess's video the other day, I don't know if people have seen it yet, about the pies. And whereas John gets in trouble sometimes for his adherence to pies, I'm in his group, by the way. I'd join the pie group if he set one up. You know, when I went to school, pie had nothing to do with circles. It had everything to do with what the contents of the pie was. But, you know, I think that's illustrative. If you ask the majority of our members, they would think the subscriptions that they pay go to the branch. They would think that they wouldn't think that we had £100 million £200 million prestige buildings worth £100 million in total in headquarters. They'd think it got to the branch. And that's one of the problems. There is no understanding. And John's pie video shows you that 75% of the subscriptions doesn't go to the branch. Obviously, it goes to other places, but when the branch haven't got the money, they can't control the resource. It's not that. It's just the same as a local authority giving money out to care homes and stuff like that, private care homes. The branch has to have control of the majority of the resources, and then the branch can do and implement what it knows. It's different. You know, there are branches in Scotland where for somebody to travel to the regional council and back from the islands, it will take them 3 days. That's not the same as branches in London that I've been to, like Islington or Haringey, where, you know, they won't be 4 miles across. And you've got to say to the branches, actually, what resources do you want? You know, do you want caseworkers? Do you want a more modern building that's accessible? Do you want this? Do you want that? So absolutely got to move away from this issue of large buildings impresses people. What impresses people is good representation.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Paul. Paul ribs me because I always forget to give him good news when we have it. We obviously heard great news from Claire earlier about Southend on Sea, but whilst I've even been on this call, I've had contact from 2 branches, both in my region, I'm pleased to say. Sorry, not in the regions we're discussing tonight, but you've had nominations from Brighton and Hove, local government branch, and also from Hampshire, local government
Right.
branch. Hampshire is the 2nd largest branch in the whole of the South East region. We're obviously welcoming nominations from branches large and small, but you know, Hampshire represent, I believe, about 7,000 members, so that's absolutely fantastic news, keeping the momentum going. I'm going to ask another question. This one is from the West Midlands, from David Hughes in Birmingham branch. Why has UNISON done so badly in terms of national pay deals, and what can be done about it?
Can I also say to the other 3 speakers before I answer that I'm not monopolising these answers. I'm happy for anybody to come in, and all 3 speakers are from local government. Why we've done so badly over pay issues, it's not a blame culture that I'm interested in. It's a looking at the situation culture. And the members only ask, you go and see a group of members about redundancies or bullying or whatever you go and see them about, they have 2 questions. They only have 2 questions. Paul, we've got this problem. What's your plan to solve it? And have we got confidence in your plan? That are the only 2 questions. And they same about pay. Nobody thinks they're well paid. Nobody thinks the pay's good enough. Nobody, you know, when people are scratching about, we've got, in Kirklees Council, we've got 400 members with 3 or more jobs. Who wants to be in that situation? They're just trying to make ends meet by cobbling jobs together. And the reason we've done so badly is we haven't answered the 2 questions. What's the plan? I'm unaware of what the plan was over pay. I know what the claim was, but what's the plan? And the second thing is, are you serious? You can't be serious when you give no strategy to the members and how you can meet the claim. And that's what happens. We've got to be shouting from the rooftops. It's a big thing of mine, this about we've got to become a big union, big and powerful union. And it hasn't got to be monopolised by the General Secretary. You're not the king or the queen of the union when you're the General Secretary, but you have to let other people off the leash. You have to be able to say, look, you get out there, this is your job, to get a profile. Now, if we ran a campaign, like some unions have run campaigns, we would have got a yes vote. But a ballot paper, 6 months after the pay date, due on the 1st of April, a ballot paper that says, we're not recommending anything, what do you think about it? Everybody knows what that means. Everybody's clear. It means accept this because we're not going to do anything about it. We've got to change that. When the conferences or the pay policy bodies in UNISON make a decision about what our claim is, if it's not met in full, then it's the job of the leadership of this union to go out and say how we're going to get it. And that's how we change things.
Fantastic, Paul. Thank you. Do any of the other speakers wish to come in? No. Okay. Fair dues. I won't put too much pressure on you, Paul. I might ask you one more question, and then after that, just ask you to wrap up. I've had this sprung on me, so I'm not gonna keep going unnecessarily if I can avoid it. So I'll ask you the question, then ask you to sum up after that. But it's quite a specific one about the NHS pay issues that's going on at the moment. So it's about the UNISON proposed £2,000 flat pay rise for NHS staff. There's some concern about that, about whether that's a good idea or whether a percentage rise would be a better approach. So the question is, would a percentage rise be a better approach? And why is UNISON breaking from the other health unions on this? And where do you stand on it?
I'm obviously not in health, but I know a lot of people who are. We're all health service users. We all know people in the health, either they work there or the patients. And, you know, I've studied the offer, I've studied the claim. And on band 1, which is the lowest band in the health service, bands are a big thing to the health service. On band 1, getting £2,000 won't be as much as getting 15%. So the 15% would benefit everybody. But let's be really clear. I have never seen as much anger about pay in the health service. Must be now for over 30 years. And I know dozens and dozens and dozens of people in the health service. It's a big employer in Wakefield where I live. It's a second only to the council. They're absolutely furious. They've gone through 6 months of being overworked. They've gone through 6 months being frightened to death. They've gone through 6 months of watching their holidays getting cancelled to be told, we clapped you, what more do you want? And there's no doubt that the feeling's there. And let's be honest, the unions, there's 15 of them. We've got to stop talking about competitor unions. There's 15 brother and sister unions in the health service. We've got to try and put in a claim that's the same. But even if we don't, we can't have that argument on the shop floor about you're a crap union or you're a better union. The only real issue is, what's the plan? And do the members believe we're serious about it? That's our issue. Because what will be of import is if there's an offer, and what we do if there isn't an offer. That's the key. And I've said this at 2 meetings already today, that what we need to do, if the legislation says we take longer to ballot, we start earlier. You know, there's a very interesting word called leverage. And when you're talking to somebody, I found this in 40 years as a steward, when you're talking to a manager, making demands on that manager about what you want, they're not looking at you in the face. They're looking over your shoulder to see what your members are willing to do and whether your members are backing you. That's the real debate before you go in the meeting. When you go into the meeting, instead of having a 92% consultative ballot for action, we're going to be balloting from tomorrow. Well, we're negotiating from next week. Well, we've got to start earlier because you've supported legislation that says it takes longer. And then you're serious. So for the health service, what's the plan? How do we implement it? That is the key issue. And then we go back to the members and say, it's a rubbish offer. This is the offer. This is what we're going for.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Are there any final thoughts that you want to wrap up the meeting with before I conclude?
Yeah, I've only got 1 point to make, Chair. It's an extension of 1 point anyway. I'd like to thank everybody who's attended the meeting, members and non-members. If you're not a member, join the union. If you remember another union, wherever UNISON organised, get involved in joint working with us. I'd like to particularly thank the 3 speakers. It's very, very kind of them. And it's quite hard sat here sometimes, hearing people making glowing remarks. The only way you can deal with it is to think they must be making them about somebody else. That's the only way you can deal with it. So for me, it's a great campaign. It's going really, really well. It's gaining momentum. We've got over 40 nominations now, and there's another 2 weeks to go after this week. It's not all about nominations. When we're on the ballot paper now, we should be on the ballot paper now. So then there'll be a 1 month period, and then the real battle starts. And it's going to be a battle of ideas. And I just urge you, I never, ever refer to it as my campaign. If somebody says to me, oh, how's your campaign going? I say, I have no idea. I don't have a campaign. It's our campaign. Everybody who's attending this meeting who's a UNISON member, everybody who spoke at this meeting, John McDonnell, me, Dan, it's our campaign to change this union, to be in the fighting union that we all want to be in. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, lovely. Brilliant, brilliant finish. Thank you so much, Paul. UNISON has to change, and this campaign is the one that is going to deliver that change. I'll finish up just by saying that everybody on the call, we will be emailing you probably tomorrow, I should imagine, with some things you can do to help support the campaign. We'll be asking you to support us on social media, to work in your branches, to talk to, to deliver branch nominations, to talk to your work colleagues. Word of mouth is really important for this campaign. This is a grassroots campaign. It's not a campaign of the establishment, so we need your support. I wanted to give a plug for the local government service group executive elections that start on Monday. There are some contested seats, not as many as there should be, but there are contested seats. And if you have the opportunity to vote in one, then please do vote and find out who the rank and file fighters are for those seats. And lastly, I want to give a plug. There is a very important meeting tomorrow night, 6 p.m. We've got John McDonnell again. I'm going to make sure he's not in a car at that point because we need him for the whole hour. I certainly am not going to be stepping in for that meeting. It's John McDonnell, Ken Loach, amazing film director, Paul Holmes and Bernie Gallagher talking about the Labour Party and UNISON's relationship with the Labour Party. And I really hope you'll join us on Friday, a little bit earlier, 6 p.m. I hope you'll join us for that. it looks like it's going to be fantastic. So once again, thanks for turning out, and hope to see you tomorrow. Goodbye.